If this is you, you know exactly what it feels like to pull back from a woman, whether on purpose or because you're tired of trying, and suddenly the silence between you feels heavier than anything you've ever carried. You thought maybe she'd notice, maybe she'd reach out, maybe she'd feel your absence the way you feel hers, but now you're sitting there, phone in your hand, wondering, did she even care at all? Does my silence mean nothing to her? Or is she just relieved I finally stopped talking? Maybe this feels familiar. You were always the one starting conversations, the one holding things together, the one keeping the energy alive. You told yourself, if I stop reaching out, maybe she'll finally show me her true feelings. But now you're left in this strange in-between. She's quiet, you're quiet, and deep down the questions won't stop running through your head. Is she testing me? Is she missing me? Or has she already moved on? You replay her words, her little signals, her moments of closeness. You wonder if any of it was real, or if you were just giving and she was just taking. And the silence, her silence feels like a mirror reflecting back all your doubts, all your fears, all the insecurities you thought you'd buried. If this is you, you're not crazy. You're not weak. You're human. Because when you stop talking to a woman, you're not just cutting off the conversation. You're facing every hidden fear of being unwanted, unseen, and replaceable. And that ache in your chest, that's not just about her. That's about every time you felt like you weren't chosen. But here's the twist you didn't expect. Silence changes things, it reveals things. It forces both you and her to confront what's real. The question is, what does a woman actually do when the man she's used to hearing from goes quiet? And more importantly, what does that silence reveal about you? Most men get this situation completely wrong, and it's not their fault. It's the way we've been conditioned to think about women, relationships, and communication. When you stop talking to a woman, most guys assume there's only two possible outcomes. Either she notices, panics, and comes running back, or she doesn't care at all and walks away forever. And because of that belief, men react with anxiety, with panic, with second guessing. They end up sabotaging themselves before the silence has even had a chance to reveal the truth. Here's what you need to understand. Silence is not a trick. It's not a manipulation tool. It's a mirror. When you stop talking, it doesn't magically change her. It shows you who she already was, what she was already feeling, and where the balance of the connection truly stood. Most men can't handle that reflection, so they break, they text again, they call again, they chase again, just to escape the discomfort of not knowing. If this is you, I want you to hear me like a brother who's already walked this road. Her silence is not the enemy. Your fear of it is. The principle most men never learn is this: masculine energy isn't about constant movement, constant talking, constant reassurance. True masculine energy is about grounded presence, and presence doesn't need to fill every space with words. Sometimes the strongest move a man can make is no move at all. Think about it. When you stop talking, you reveal two things at once. You reveal your willingness to step back and protect your own energy, and you reveal whether or not she actually values your presence. A woman who is truly interested will feel that absence. She will wonder about you. She will reach out, check in, or find ways to pull you back into her orbit. But a woman who isn't invested will simply drift, and that's not rejection, that's clarity. Most men never let it get to that point because they can't handle the tension. They're terrified of the space. But a 1% headman understands something different. He knows that silence doesn't push the right woman away. It filters the wrong woman out. He doesn't measure his worth by her response. He measures it by how grounded he can remain, regardless of her response. Let me give you an image. Imagine a strong oak tree. The wind blows, storms come, seasons change. The oak doesn't chase the wind. It doesn't beg the storm to calm. It doesn't move just because the weather is unpredictable. It stands. That's what your silence represents. It's not a game. It's your rootedness, your ability to remain steady without scrambling for approval. The false belief men hold is that constant communication equals connection, that if you stop talking, the bond will fade. But the truth is, if the bond was only alive because you were carrying it with endless effort, it was never real to begin with. Connection is tested in the quiet. Real desire shows up when space is created. Here's another principle. Women are drawn to the man who can remain composed when others would unravel. When you stop talking, she will do one of two things. She will either lean in because your absence creates a vacuum she wants to fill, or she will lean out because she was never invested to begin with. Either way, you win, because either she reveals her genuine interest or she reveals that she was never yours to begin with. And I want you to remember this: silence isn't punishment. It isn't about withholding affection or teaching her a lesson. It's about teaching yourself. It's about proving to yourself that you can be still, you can be patient, you can be grounded in your worth, regardless of how she responds. So when you stop talking to a woman, don't watch your phone like a hawk. Don't make it about controlling her. Make it about centering yourself. Make it about reclaiming your energy, your attention, your peace. Because a man who can master silence is a man who never has to beg for connection again. The real question is, can you sit with the silence long enough to discover what it's actually trying to show you? It starts with the glow of a phone screen in a dark room. The kind of glow that feels colder than the night air, even though it's just pixels. He scrolls through old conversations, her words staring back at him like fragments of a song he used to know by heart. The way she'd say his name, the little emojis, the sudden bursts of energy when she wanted to talk about something that mattered to her. Now nothing, silence. He tells himself he won't be the first one to break it this time. He tosses the phone face down on the bed as if covering it could bury the weight in his chest. But the quiet has a way of getting louder when there's no reply. Did I push too hard? Did she lose interest? Or was it always just me keeping this alive? The thoughts don't stop. They chase him into the kitchen, where he stands staring at a half-empty coffee mug. He takes a sip, it's gone cold. Just like the space between them. He remembers the last time they spoke. Her voice light, distracted. He could feel it, she wasn't really there. He was holding on with words, hoping she'd hold back with actions. But she didn't. And so he stopped. He let the silence breathe for once. And that's when the strange thing happened. The world didn't collapse. His heart didn't shatter. The ground didn't give way beneath him. Instead, there was just stillness, uncomfortable, yes, but also oddly revealing. Days passed, no text from her, but instead of chasing, he stayed quiet. He noticed things he'd forgotten, the sound of his shoes on the pavement during his morning walk, the way the air smelled like rain just before a storm, the way his chest felt lighter when he wasn't rehearsing what to say next. Then, one evening, as the sun sank low and painted the sky in orange and purple streaks, his phone buzzed. For a second, his heart kicked against his ribs. He grabbed it, her name on the screen. Just one line, "Hey, how have you been?" Simple, casual, almost too casual. But he knew what it meant. She felt the silence. She noticed his absence. She was reaching, not because he demanded it, but because she realized something. She wasn't the only one with power in this dance. He didn't reply right away. He put the phone down, sat on the porch, and listened to the crickets chirping in the grass. For the first time, he realized the silence had done its work. It had shown him the truth. Her reaction wasn't the point. His reaction was. What she did when he stopped talking was only half the story. The other half was what he discovered in himself. The strength to let go, the patience to hold steady, the quiet knowing that if she valued him, she'd come back, and if she didn't, he'd still stand tall. That night, he finally slept without the restless tossing, not because she had texted, but because he no longer needed her reply to feel complete. And in that stillness, in that quiet victory, he understood something every man eventually learns. When you stop talking to a woman, you don't lose her, you find out whether she was ever really there. Most men carry heavy false beliefs into silence with a woman, and it's these beliefs, not the woman, that end up breaking them. The silence itself isn't painful. What's painful is the story you tell yourself about what it means. Today I want to wake you up from those stories, not to shame you, but to help you see clearly. Because once you see the truth, the game changes forever. The first false belief is this: if I stop talking to her, she'll forget about me. This belief comes from a place of fear, the fear of being invisible, of being replaced. But think about it, if a woman truly values you, does her memory vanish the second you stop texting? No. In fact, absence often intensifies awareness. Your presence lingers more powerfully in silence than in a stream of words that demand attention. What you need to understand is this: if your connection is real, your silence doesn't erase you. It amplifies you. And if it wasn't real, then she was never holding on in the first place. She didn't ghost you, you disappeared from yourself. Most men are terrified of disappearing from her world, but the real tragedy is that they've already disappeared from their own. They fill every gap with constant messages, constant validation, constant pursuit, because deep down, they don't believe their stillness is enough. But the 1% headman knows his silence has weight. He trusts that his absence reveals as much as his presence. The second false belief is this: if I stop talking, I'll lose her. This belief makes men think they're in a race against time, as if women are constantly slipping away and the only way to keep them is to keep chasing. But chasing doesn't build attraction, it destroys it. Imagine a fire: when you smother it with wood too quickly, it chokes out. But if you feed it just enough, it grows on its own. The same principle applies here. When you stop talking, you don't lose her. You give her space to reveal where she stands. If she leans in, it's because she feels your absence. If she drifts away, it's because she was never anchored to begin with. Either way, you didn't lose her. You discovered the truth. Your silence doesn't push her away, it shows you who was really standing close. The third false belief is this: if she doesn't reach out first, it means I don't matter to her. This is one of the deepest wounds men carry, and it's often rooted in childhood experiences of feeling overlooked or unchosen. You wait for her text, her call, her sign of effort, and when it doesn't come, you assume it means you're worthless. But her actions don't define your value. They only reveal her level of investment. A woman may not reach out for reasons that have nothing to do with you: her pride, her distractions, her own emotional walls. If you equate her silence with your lack of worth, you hand over your entire identity to someone who hasn't even earned it. The truth is simple: your worth doesn't fluctuate based on whether or not a woman sends you a message. Your worth is constant. What changes is your awareness of it. She stirs, not ignoring you. Life is asking if you finally stop ignoring yourself. When you begin to see through these false beliefs, something shifts. You stop treating silence like punishment and you start treating it like clarity. You realize that what a woman does in your absence says more about her than it does about you. And you learn to sit in the tension, to let the silence breathe without rushing to fill it with nervous energy. The 1% headman knows something that most men never learn. Silence is not a void, it's a filter. It removes the noise, the pretense, the illusions, and leaves behind only what's real. That might mean she reaches out. That might mean she doesn't. But in both cases, you win, because you have the truth. Now ask yourself, what's scarier? The silence between you and her, or the silence between you and yourself? Because until you can sit with your own silence, no amount of her words will ever satisfy you. The 1% headman moves differently in silence because he understands something most men never grasp. It's not about what she does when you stop talking, it's about who you become when you stop needing her response. This is what he understands: silence is not a weakness, it's not passive, it's not retreat, it's a deliberate choice to let things breathe, to allow reality to reveal itself without trying to control it. Most men break the moment a woman goes quiet. They scramble, they chase, they text paragraphs to fill the void. The 1% headman doesn't. He knows his value is not tied to her reply. He knows his energy is not up for negotiation. This is how he leads with presence, not pressure. He doesn't need to constantly perform to keep her attention. He doesn't need to push the connection forward with effort. She's not matching. Instead, he allows his groundedness to speak louder than any words he could send. She feels his absence because he carries weight when he's present. He doesn't beg for validation, he embodies it. The 1% headman looks at silence differently. Where other men see rejection, he sees information. Where other men feel emptiness, he feels opportunity. He knows that what she does in the quiet will tell him everything he needs to know about her level of investment, and he trusts himself enough to let her actions speak. This is what he understands. If she values him, she will reach out. If she doesn't, she won't. Either way, he wins because he's no longer confusing her choices with his worth. He doesn't need her to text him back to remember who he is. When most men stop talking to a woman, their mind spins out. They think, she's losing interest. I need to prove myself. I need to win her back. But the 1% headman holds a different inner dialogue. He thinks, let's see if she values me enough to close the gap. Let's see if her actions align with her words. Let's see if this connection can stand without me carrying all the weight. This is how he moves. Grounded, patient, unshaken. He doesn't see silence as a test he needs to pass. He sees it as a mirror. If she leans in, he notices. If she pulls away, he notices. But in neither case does he lose himself. The 1% headman understands that women don't respect pressure, they respect presence. Presence means being steady, whether she's overflowing with attention or holding back in distance. Presence means his life doesn't pause when she does. He continues his work, his growth, his mission. She can feel that energy, that immovable center, and that's what draws her back. Not need, not begging, not tactics. Presence. This is how he leads, not by chasing her into conversation, but by standing firm in his own lane. He lets her feel what it's like when his attention isn't a given. He lets her experience the gravity of his presence by stepping back without fear. And in doing so, he teaches her something. His energy is valuable. His time is rare. His silence carries as much meaning as his words. The mindset shift is this: most men think silence is about her. The 1% headman knows it's about him. It's not about making her notice, it's about noticing himself. It's not about manipulating her into action. It's about revealing her natural behavior when she's no longer being carried. This is what he understands. A man who cannot sit in silence will never be trusted in chaos. A man who cannot hold still without unraveling will never be respected when it matters most. And so he welcomes the quiet because it forges him into something stronger. When you step into this mindset, something changes inside you. You stop needing to force things. You stop chasing answers. You stop handing your piece over to her every move. Instead, you stand rooted like that oak tree, steady, grounded, unshaken. And the irony is, that's exactly the energy that makes women lean in. This is how the 1% headman lives. He doesn't abandon his worth in silence, he discovers it there. He sat there staring at the phone like it held the answer to everything. The silence between him and her had stretched longer than he thought he could bear. At first it was a game in his mind. I'll wait. She'll reach out. Any minute now, she'll notice. But as the hours became days, he felt it deep in his chest, the heaviness of being unseen. The part of him that always feared being forgotten whispered louder with every passing moment. And then something shifted. He caught his reflection in the dark glass of the screen. For the first time, he didn't just see a man waiting on a woman's reply. He saw himself, tired eyes, shoulders heavy, a man handing over his piece to a silence that wasn't even his to control. And the thought hit him like a quiet thunder. Why am I waiting for her to remind me of who I already am? It wasn't anger, it wasn't bitterness, it was something softer, deeper. a kind of remembering. He stood up, set the phone down on the table, and walked outside. The evening air was cool, brushing against his skin like a reminder that life was still moving, whether she texted back or not. The world hadn't stopped. The sky still stretched wide. The ground was still beneath his feet. And in that moment he realized the silence wasn't empty, it was full of everything he'd been too distracted to notice while chasing her replies. The sound of his breath, the rhythm of his steps, the weight of his own presence. He laughed under his breath, a sound that surprised him. Not because anything was funny, but because he finally understood she wasn't the one who had gone silent. He was. He had gone silent with himself, drowning out his own worth with the noise of trying to earn hers. The awakening wasn't loud. It didn't feel like victory, it felt like peace. He no longer needed her message to arrive. He no longer needed proof of his value to appear in glowing letters on a screen. He remembered something truer. His value was never missing. It was waiting for him to stop begging for echoes and start listening to his own voice again. And with that, the weight lifted. He didn't hate her, he didn't resent the silence. He was grateful for it, because it forced him to remember the one truth he had forgotten. He was already enough before she ever replied. For the first time, he didn't wait for the phone to buzz. He walked away, not as a man abandoned, but as a man who had finally come home to himself. You began this journey staring at the silence, wondering what she would do when you stopped talking to her. Would she notice? Would she care? Would she reach back? Or would she let you drift? That question echoed in your chest like a weight you couldn't set down. But now you see it wasn't really about her response, it was about yours. The silence wasn't a test of her, it was a mirror for you. It showed you how much of yourself you'd given away. It revealed the fear, the doubt, the craving for validation that had been steering your every move. And when you finally stopped waiting, you discovered something powerful. You don't need her to remind you of your worth. You were carrying it all along. When you stop talking to a woman, she will either lean in or she won't. That part has never been yours to control. What has always been yours is the choice to remember who you are in the space she leaves behind. The truth every man must carry is this: the silence you fear from her is the silence that frees you to hear yourself again. And the line that lingers long after the screen goes dark is this: you don't find your worth in her reply, you find it in the man you become when the reply never comes.